Tonight, Saskatoon police arrest and charge a child and a teenager in connection to the death of a 12-year-old. Also, who's in charge of collecting the carbon tax in Saskatchewan? We now know who that could be. Plus, a new feature on the Highway Hotline could help you make more informed travel decisions the next time the snow flies.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Wednesday, February 21st, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thanks for watching. Saskatoon police say they've charged two boys, one 12, one 13, in the death of another 12-year-old. On Monday, police responded here to the 1000 block of Matheson Drive. It was 3 a.m. when they were called out about a 12-year-old boy who was seriously hurt. The boy was taken to hospital but died a short time later. Today, police announced manslaughter charges against the two boys. They're facing 4 weapons-related offenses as well. This is Saskatoon's 5th homicide of 2024. A Saskatoon judge has been hearing the defense's case at Greg Furtuck's first-degree murder trial this week. Sherry Furtuck disappeared 9 years ago, and her body has never been found. Her husband, Greg Furtuck, was charged in her death in 2019. Pratush Dayal has the latest.
Greg Furtuck is charged with killing his wife and is representing himself in court. He told the court Wednesday that he has chosen not to testify. He also says he doesn't have any more defense witnesses. Furtuck questioned 3 people on Tuesday. None were expert witnesses. That included Sherry Furtuck's brother, her neighbor, and Greg's previous lawyer. With that, the evidence phase of the trial is done. Justice Richard Danlick says the next step is to present final submissions. Closing arguments will happen on Monday, February 26th. That day, both Furtuck and the Crown will present their closing arguments. There will be reasonable rebuttal. That means not everything can be argued, but they can address anything not discussed before. Justice Danlick says he will act as a referee to maneuver through what he says is a complex case with a huge amount of evidence. Justice Danlick also ruled last September that the videotaped confession that Greg made to undercover police is admissible evidence. That means the judge can consider it when deciding if Furtuck is guilty. In the 2019 tape that was part of a Mr. Big Stink, Furtuck described killing his wife. The court is now adjourned till Monday. Pratish Dayal, CBC News, Saskatoon.
We have an update regarding Saskatchewan's resistance to the carbon tax. It all goes back to who is collecting that tax. But as Alexander Kwan will tell us, so many questions are still unanswered.
Saskatchewan appears to have scored a big win as the provincial government continues to resist the federal carbon tax. According to the provincial government, they are now the only recognized distributor of natural gas in Saskatchewan. So, why does that matter? This all goes back to a decision by the federal government. Last year, Ottawa chose to pause the carbon tax on home heating oil. Natural gas wasn't included, and the province thinks that's unfair. The minister responsible for Sask Energy, Dustin Duncan, even vowed to stop collecting the carbon tax on natural gas. Legislation was also passed to make the province responsible, not the Crown Corporation. But the federal government needed to agree to that, and now Canada Revenue Agency has made a decision. Sask Energy is now off the hook. The provincial government is solely responsible for collecting the carbon tax on natural gas and sending that money to Ottawa. If they don't, there could be fines or even jail time. But there still remains so many unanswered questions.
My question would be, how has the CRA authorized this? Unless there's a different act somewhere and I'm reading the wrong one, this doesn't appear to be permissible under the federal greenhouse gas pollution pricing.
And these questions aren't being answered. The CRA has yet to respond to our request for comment, and same goes for the federal environment minister. Even if this is being allowed under the federal carbon pricing law, Andrew Leach says Ottawa ripping up a key piece of its environmental policy makes very little sense legally or politically.
Saying, we're going to, as the federal government, just sort of be fine with a provincial government overriding federal law. In fact, what we'll do is we'll just ignore the federal law ourselves, to me seems like an absolutely terrible road to go down.
Saskatchewan has not been collecting the carbon tax on natural gas since January 1st, and those fees are due in Ottawa by the end of this month. But with about a week to go, the province says they have yet to make a decision on those payments. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
While students are on February break, the province is being asked to address violence in schools. This morning, the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation shared testimonials from teachers. The STF says incidents of violence are increasing and that the province has no formal way to report violent student incidents. Here's one teacher's story.
So in March 2023, I was working as a grade 3-4 teacher in a Saskatchewan school, and this is my very first year as an elementary school teacher. I was going outside for recess supervision when I heard a situation out in the hallway. I walked into the hallway and I was attacked by a grade 7 student who was in an escalated state. I was repeatedly hit and kicked in the upper body and the head by the student, and I was told it took several staff members to get the student off of me and be able to restrain them. From there, we had police and emergency services at the school. I was taken to the hospital by ambulance during the school day, and I ended up being treated for a severe concussion and a broken nose and had other bruises on my body. After this, I stayed in a state of shock for about a month. I wasn't really able to process what had happened or how severe it was. And then once the bruising on my face and body had faded, I returned to work full time. This was only 27 days after the initial incident. My return to work with my students in the exact same school ended up being unsuccessful, and I ended up transferring schools to finish off the school year in a co-teaching situation. I ended up working with my doctor and my physiotherapist for 3 months following to help with continued issues with my concussion. And still today, I have to work with my different therapists to help me navigate the anxieties that I have in the classroom. And it took me quite a while to become comfortable teaching in a classroom by myself again. I do not blame the student for what happened. I blame the system and the continued lack of government support that continues to let the Saskatchewan students fall through the cracks. As of right now in Saskatchewan, there's not a system in place for teachers to even report when they're involved in a violent incident within a school. I've now moved and I teach in a completely different province. And before my first day of teaching, I was made aware of their incident reporting system. The teachers in Saskatchewan are just not prepared, supported, or even given the proper resources to be able to support the students when they really need it.
Violence and harassment is being experienced by more and more teachers across our province in Saskatchewan. An STF survey of Saskatchewan teachers around classroom violence found that 35.4% of respondents experienced violence in their working environment in the last 5 years. 4 out of 5 of them noted that they had experienced 2 to 3 instances in the last 5 years. We could put into the collective agreement, and as other provinces have, an agreement to share data between the Federation, school divisions, and the ministry to ensure that everyone has the same information through a confidential reporting mechanism. There could also be a way that funds are directed to school divisions to ensure that more supports are available in schools to address issues around class complexity, which for the most part is the cause of a lot of the violence that occurs within schools. So if we can address that, it will likely minimize the events that are occurring.
When asked for comment, the government didn't address calls for a reporting system. Instead, it highlighted its negotiators waiting for the STF to come back to the table. The government says it is willing to be flexible on the topic of classroom safety. The STF says negotiations aren't happening if the province won't address class sizes and complexity. Meanwhile, Alberta's government will introduce its provincial budget next week, and top of mind for teachers, funding. Alberta's Teachers Association says more educators are at risk of quitting if the government doesn't ramp up its investment in schools. Janet French has more.
Teachers feel this sense of moral distress, that they're not meeting the needs of their students day in and day out.
Jason Schilling says conditions in classrooms like these have become unworkable for many teachers and students, and that a new survey of teachers validates what they've been hearing. That students with suspected disabilities are waiting too long for professional assessments, that the vast majority of teachers say they feel exhausted and are more likely to say they're stressed out than feeling hopeful. The Alberta government no longer tracks class sizes, but Edmonton Public Schools does. In the last 5 years, average class sizes grew in every grade. The number of students with diagnosed disabilities in each class also rose. So did the number of English language learners. The Alberta Teachers Association says the problems get worse every year the K-12 system is underfunded for inflation and growth, and that some schools are already having trouble retaining and recruiting teachers.
This government is failing the students of Alberta, and they deserve better.
Alberta teachers have started bargaining with the government. Schilling says teachers may demand class size ratios in their contract or in law, like in BC and Ontario. Large, complex classes in Saskatchewan have led teachers to hold rotating strikes. Alberta's education minister says conditions aren't as dire as the association describes.
Are there challenges that we need to address? Are there areas that we need to focus on a little bit more? Absolutely. But there's no question in my mind, we have a world-class education system.
The education minister won't give any clues about next week's budget, but he says his government gave schools extra money this year when enrollment jumped. But the opposition NDP says the government will have to boost spending by more than 5% if they want conditions to improve.
Well, who I support are the parents, right? Who I support are the parents who are asking for really, like a bare minimum standard.
Just where classrooms rank in the government's long list of demands, we'll find out on February 29th, Budget Day. Janet French, CBC News, Edmonton.
Winter driving conditions in this province can be treacherous, but the province says a new feature on the highway hotline will let you know where snowplows are and what roads have been recently plowed. It's a pilot called Track My Plow. You can find it on the Highway Hotline's website and phone app. This is in addition to the more than 50 real-time cameras connected to the online map in the province. The new tool allows you to see the paths of snowplows as they work on snow and ice control.
Snowplows are equipped with transmitters that show their location for the 2 previous hours when they're plowing, doing surveillance, or applying salt and sand. On the screen, the plows leave a trail of markers behind them. These markers tell you where the plow has been. They tell you if your route has been treated yet and when.
The new feature is being released on most of the province's 300 plows. Carr says the intention is for this pilot project to become permanent. The Ministry of Highways will monitor how it goes and public feedback too. People in Saskatoon have less than 2 weeks to put in a request for a smaller black garbage bin. The city will stop taking requests for the smaller carts on March 1st. That's because the payment model there is changing. Instead of paying through property taxes, people will be charged based on the size of their bin. Starting in July, there will be 3 different costs, ranging from about $4 to $10.50 a month. So far, the city says it's received more than 12,000 requests for smaller carts. If you do miss the March 1st deadline, there will be another chance to swap in July. That was an eerie, foggy start to the day in the Queen City, and that fog did cause some visibility issues across southern Saskatchewan highways this morning. It certainly did hang on a lot longer than we expected today. So is there more fog in the forecast? Tyreek Reed will have the answer for you after the break. Stay with us. We're in late February, and last summer's record-setting wildfire season still isn't over. True story. There are nearly 150 fires smoldering away in Alberta and BC. Some fires continue to burn in the Northwest Territories. They are known as zombie fires, and they're burning just below the surface, feeding on things like peat. Researchers say this is unusual, and it signals potential for a very active spring. Weather conditions will be a deciding factor, and Western Canada continues to face drought-like conditions.
The weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. Trade and upgrade is on now.
And weather specialist Tyreek Reed joins me now. The fog was a real problem on highways this morning.
Yeah, very, very foggy conditions within south and central parts of the province, Sam, causing lots of low visibility along highways. Now, we did start to see that clear up as we headed further into the day, but even right now, we are still seeing some pretty low visibility in southern parts of the province. Here in Regina, sitting at around 1 kilometer, even lower in Estevan. And as we head into tonight, we might see some of that fog move back
back in areas like Estevan, but that will clear out as we head into tomorrow morning and further into Thursday as well. Temperature-wise, still sitting at around seasonal and even above seasonal for many parts of the province. Up north in Collins Bay, sitting at around -10 right now, very warm. Usually they're a bit cooler around this time of year. Same situation for our friends in Stony Rapids. But as we head further into the south, that's when we really start to feel that warmth right now in Prince Albert. Our friends there sitting at around 4 degrees above zero and above seasonal there. A bit cooler in Regina, we're seeing temperatures right now around -2. In Saskatoon, a bit cooler as well, around -5. But very warm conditions like we've been seeing throughout the week. Now we do have this system moving in through the far north. That's bringing some light snowfall, but that will move into Manitoba as we head into tomorrow. And heading further into Friday, we will start to see some snowfall move down south, and we'll start to see a bit of light snow pick back up in the far north as well. But once again, this is just very light snow. After this snow is done with us, we'll start to see around 2 centimeters of snowfall on the ground, and heading into Friday, that will leave around 2 centimeters and 3 centimeters in places like L'Orange and Stony Rapids. But once again, very light, not much to worry about there. Winds have not been much of an issue for us today, but heading into Thursday, we will start to see that pick up in southern parts of the province, looking at around 30 to 40 kilometers gusting in places like Regina and Estevan. As we head into Friday as well, we'll see those gusting at around 50 kilometers an hour. But for now, still quite calm in terms of winds, but those will pick up as we head further into the week. Speaking of the week ahead, let's take a look at our 7-day forecast. Tomorrow in Regina, sitting above zero with a daytime high of 3 degrees. As we head into Friday and Saturday, that will remain the same, seeing daytime highs at around 4 degrees. As we head into the week, we will start to see those temperatures cool down a bit. We'll see a daytime high of -12 on Tuesday, and of course, winds gusting as we head further into the week as well. Same situation for our friends in Saskatoon. They'll be at around 0 degrees tomorrow for a daytime high. And as we head further into the week, they'll get above that, even sitting at around 2 degrees on Friday and Sunday. As we head further into next week, those temperatures will start to drop. But Sam, for now, it's looking really warm.
That is quite the temperature swing, and we're going to call that a next week's problem.
Next week's problem for sure. We don't have to worry about that right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
A giant panda cub in China has been dazzling spectators with its gymnastic skills. Workers at the conservation facility kept a close eye on the aspiring athlete as it moved along a high wooden beam using only its arms. The cub was born last year at a research center in southwestern China, and the facility is known for protecting and breeding giant pandas, red pandas, and other endangered animals. We'll be back after the break. Alabama's Supreme Court has ruled that frozen embryos can be considered children legally. The ruling could have a big impact on fertility treatments and the freezing of embryos.
If this fertilized egg is now a child, can we freeze them? Who is potentially criminally liable? Is it the people who created those embryos? Maybe it's the embryologist, or maybe it's somebody in the fertility clinic. We simply don't know.
A large Alabama hospital has paused IVF treatments because of the decision. It was issued in a wrongful death case brought by couples who had frozen embryos destroyed in an accident at a fertility clinic. The court ruled that a 152-year-old law allowing parents to sue over the death of a minor applies to all unborn children, regardless of their location. One judge cited the Bible in the decision. And Tyreek is back with one last look at your weather.
Thank you, Sam. Tonight in Regina, temperatures will drop to around -11, feeling much cooler when you add in those wind chills. Tomorrow morning, starting off our day on a warmer note, sitting at around -6. And as we head into the afternoon, we'll see highs at around 0 degrees, but of course, still feeling those winds gusting to around 30 kilometers an hour. In Saskatoon, a bit of the same situation there for our friends, sitting at around -11 tonight with a wind chill of around -18 degrees. Now, of course, heading into tomorrow morning, morning. We'll see that warm up a bit, sitting at around -6 as they're heading out for work tomorrow morning. And of course, warming up significantly heading into the afternoon at around 0 degrees, Sam.
Going to be a nice, another nice day.
Yes, it will be.
All right, thanks, Ty.
No problem.
And before we leave you tonight, some local blind and visually impaired students are competing for a chance to compete in California this summer. The top 50 kids in the Saskatchewan Braille Challenge will get to go to an international competition in June. The organizing teacher at Arcola School filled us in on how it works.
So the Braille Challenge is a competition which is put on by the Braille Institute in California. And so here in Saskatchewan, we're having the preliminary contests, and the children have a chance to be one of the top 50 spots. There's 5 different categories, different age categories, and our students are competing for one of those 50 spots. And those are students from they're competing against students from Canada, the US, and the UK.
Pass your papers over. Let's see.
Competitions are proofreading, where the student reads some sentences and then has to find the spelling mistakes or punctuation mistakes or the Braille contraction mistakes. Another competition is spelling, where the students are given about 45 words and they must spell them in uncontracted Braille and then in contracted Braille as well. We also have, for the older students, a charts and graph competition where they look at different types of graphs, such as bar graphs, pie graphs, which are tactual, and they must answer questions on those as well.
My name is Fletcher Bryant McDonald, and I am in grade 4. I'm hoping for like top 10 or at least in top 20.
My name is Fatah Mohammed. What made me want to do the challenge? To see my friends. The best part is when somebody tells you're in first place or second place. That's the best part for me.
Uncontracted Braille is your basic 26 letters. Each letter is a combination of one of 6 dots in a different pattern. With contracted Braille, there are words that are common that are made into just one Braille character.
Contraction is basically like a group of letters or symbol, or like it could be a symbol that could mean something. Like it could mean the word and, the, together, all those words and more.
Come on, there, perfect. Who's number 5? The child was hurt when he fell.
I personally love to see the joy on the kids' faces when they are successful. Sometimes the challenges are challenging, but we work through it, and just seeing that resilience and that ability to bounce back even if things are difficult is one of the beautiful things that we get to see in this challenge.
I just can't wait for the last test.
What's the last test?
Braille alphabet, yay!
That's great. That's it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/Sask, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or download the CBC News app on your phone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.